they had this Japanese technique where they took out the bowls they used for tea ceremony out of the hot kiln, and they introduced some kind of combustibles like sugar, pine needles, leaves, etc. And because different combustibles reacted differently, the temperature changed, the pots looked very different, and they used that for the traditional ceremony. In around 1911, Raku process traveled to West. The British potter brought it to Britain, and from there it came here around 1950s. The process changed a little bit in terms of firing, the technique, what all they use, the temperature, etc. What is a Raku firing process? What do we do in it? So is very low compared to the other types of glaze firings that we do here. So the temperatures are anywhere from 1400 to 1850 for Raku kiln, based on the Raku process we are going to do. And the timing is from 20 to 30 minutes. So the pot goes in the cold oven, and you have to wear gloves. There's a blazing fire. That's why it's called playing with fire. And then you use these long tongues to take the pot out. And then you either put it in a bucket or you put it on a flat surface and put things on it. So that's what Raku firing process is. Now we can do different types of glaze for Raku. Here at Blossom, of course, for reasons, we allow only clays that are here because we want to know how the clays react. Any clay with a grog works really well for Raku. So I will be walking through the clays here. B-mix works. A lot of people do Raku with porcelain pots, but they tend to crack a lot more comparatively because there's pretty much no grog in porcelain. B-mix, the same thing. B-mix with grog, we have Orion Stout. You can also use Bravo Buff, even though it's kind of tinted clay, it's not a white clay, for certain types of Raku. And that has grog and sculpture Raku. So these are what is grog? Does anybody know what a grog is? So basically it's clay, they fire it, they powder it, so it's already vitrified clay. It comes in different sizes. Some of them are really fine grog. We used to have a clay called Godzilla. Grogzilla back here, and that really had big grog in it. So if you're throwing the clay, you could feel it. Versus if you have thrown with B mixed with sand, B mixed with grog, you don't feel it as much on your hand as opposed to Orion Stout or Sculpture Raku, because the grog size in the clay is very different. So why does the grog help? Because the temperatures vary so fast. So it's to cool down before you open it. Versus for Raku, you just take it out from the hot oven, and sometimes you plunge it in water, sometimes you put it in a bucket, sometimes even when you take it out and put it outside, the temperature of air is way cooler than the one in the oven. So there is a thermal shock. Plus you're using tongs, there's some kind of pressure in different parts of the clay body. So it is very, very important when you're throwing to try and have same size of throwout. You don't want thicker clay on one side and thinner clay on the other. There's more chance of cracking, and grog helps a lot with fire clays. And then shapes and textures. So for Raku generally, if there are hard edges for anything, the clay tends to crack there. People like to use curved or orb shapes, like these kind of shapes do really well on Raku. Or even these, a little bit. Or if you're doing a vase, then you can do something like this. Now the only problem with these kind of vases is you have to remember you're going to pick it up with the tongue. So it needs to have a little bit of lip. So when you're picking it up, it stops here, or you pick it up from here and it doesn't move. So you have to figure out what you're comfortable picking up. Generally, anything with a little bit bigger opening works better, because then you can put your tongs inside, open the tongue, and then you pick it up like that and put it in the bucket. So any of these kind of shapes work. For these kind of shapes, it's better to have a bigger lip if you're doing it for the first time. So put your tongs here, there's a lip, it stays on the tongue, and then you transfer it. And also also how big it is. For me, I'm a short person. I always have problem picking up big pieces, because if I'm gonna put, say, if I have this top, and the raku kiln starts here, and the temperatures of the raku kiln are best in the middle of the oven, so we put the bricks to make make it higher. So for me, if I have to go up there and pick it up, so generally these kind of pots I don't go super high when I leave them open, because I want to be able to pick them up. Also weight. Remember, you have gloves, you have tongs, you're going to pick it up, and there is going to be fire. So if you have a 10-pound pot, you may not be able to pick it up with the tongs and move it somewhere. So when you're throwing for raku, you have to remember, yes, texture, how we do it, and then size and shape of the pot is extremely important. I have done this, I've done in 2 pieces. That works too, and then you do epoxy, so you have a pedestal. Now plates and bowls, I have done it many times. The chances of it cracking is more than something like this, because when you take out plate, you put it on a surface, we put it on a hot brick, but still it's suddenly a lot of surface is exposed to hot air, and the cracking can be more. So if you want to experiment, more than welcome to do bowls and plates that you can pick up with the tongue yourself, think about that. But generally these kind of shapes survive better. So if you're practicing, you don't care too much. If you're throwing 3 pieces, for example, for raku, make 2 something similar to this, and 1 pot, maybe a platter or a bowl, so you don't care if it breaks. So yeah, they do look super cool. Like when they actually come out fine, they do look cool. But remember those things in your mind. And then next is techniques. There are multiple different techniques that we do for raku fire. The very popular one is the glaze. So any bisque fire piece. Generally, I will be talking about a little bit about trimming and how you do it, but generally it comes out of this, and we have 3 or 4 glazes, raku glazes outside, and once the demonstration is done, I'll walk you guys out and show you what different types of pots there are. And you put those glaze on, about 2 coats you paint them on, and those go in the kiln. Then they get picked up out of the hot oven at around 1850, go in the bucket. The bucket has paper, or sometimes we don't do pine needles here because they don't take very long. They keep kindling very long, so it's a sort of fire hazard. So we do sawdust and paper shreddings here, and when you put that in the bucket, the fire goes everywhere, and that is the result you get from it. So this is called, this is my absolute favorite, it's rainbow matte raku. And I just love how it looks. We also offer mica raku. So mica is basically some type of mineral. It's like a crushed pigment that you mix with terracage. And when the pot comes out of bisque, before rakuing it, you put that thing on. And these are 2 or 3 of the mica pieces. So you put the mica on with terracage, and then you put the combustibles. So all these dots you see here, they are from sugar. And we put feathers, there's sugar, we do horsehair. You can do human hair, but they are so much thinner that they burn super fast, and sometimes you don't get anything on the pot. So horsehair are much thicker. You take long horsehair, just drape it on, and then you get, or you can hold it like super taut against the pot, which is what I've done here. And then you go get these. So for mica raku, one great thing is you can have a lot of colors for mica raku. On this pot, I have purple inside, violet outside. This one is red. This one is red also. So you can get gold, you can get blue, green. There are tons of colors that you can do for mica. So if you look at this pot versus this pot, now all of them are fairly smooth. For Raku, generally, if there is too much texture, the pot doesn't look good. For glazed Raku, it works because then for certain texture you can put one kind of glaze, for certain other texture you can put different kind of glaze and it works. But for mica Raku, sagar Raku, I'll be explaining Ubara. For all those, it's very, very important for the pot to be super smooth. If you look at this pot versus this pot, do you see the difference? There's a slight shine here, and if you feel those spots, they feel different. And this spot too, actually. If you look at this and look at this, it's different. It's the same clay, but there's something called terracage on it. Now, what is a terracage? Terracage is basically a fine slip. You make it with ball clip, regular ball clip, but you mix it with water and some kind of deflocculant. So deflocculant makes the thin particles. So clay is made of particles. Clay particles are not balls, they are flat discs. These flat discs, there are some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller. So in terracage, when you add the deflocculant, the thicker particles go down and the thinner particles stay suspended in water. Now those particles are called terracage. So once the pot is trimmed and you make it smooth, then you put terracage. And then there's a process called burnishing where you use different kind of ribs to smooth it over and give it that kind of a shine. So once the pot has that kind of a shine, it is really, really ready for something called mica or ubara. If you do a regular pot, it won't look as shiny as this is. So